Amid-air, sharp as a blade, Ace knelt before the execution stand, ready to face a merciless end. And in that moment, the faint rattle of chains echoed like a warning of the fate awaiting him. As Ace lowered his head, the executioners raised their gleaming blades, reflecting the despair spreading across the field. But just then, the distant sea trembled violently, as if the ocean roared in fury, and towering columns of water erupted as a massive fleet tore through the raging horizon. While Navy soldiers panicked, Ace opened his eyes. He knew that storm was coming for him. And in that instant, the largest ship burst from the deep like an awakened Leviathan. The Quake Titan stood tall on the deck, his shadow cloaking the battlefield like an angered god, and his roar split the air, cracking the earth as if Marineford itself would be swallowed whole. As the executioners backed away, thousands of Navy soldiers raised their weapons for the inevitable clash. But the Whitebeard fleet didn't hesitate. They charged forward with unbreakable spirit, and the crash of steel rang out, signaling the start of the greatest battle of the era. Meanwhile, Sengoku ordered the defenses tightened, for he knew Whitebeard hadn't come to negotiate. But Aokiji stepped forward, his ice freezing entire swaths of the sea within seconds. And Kizaru turned into light, firing beams that pierced through enemy formations effortlessly. As chaos spread, young Storm descended from the sky, determined to destroy the execution platform, and his first punches sent shockwaves ripping through the ground. But the Magma Enforcer appeared, his molten aura raising the temperature to unbearable levels. And he declared he would incinerate anyone who dared approach the execution stand. Meanwhile, Crocodile intervened from afar, summoning sandstorms to break the Navy's formation. But Mihawk drew his blade, slicing through the chaos with lightning precision. And Buggy laughed loudly, convinced he was the world's center of attention. As smoke engulfed the battlefield, Marco transformed into blue flames, tending to injured allies. And Vista danced across the front lines, his roseblade technique drawing shimmering arcs. But Jozu turned to Diamond, shattering enemy assaults head-on with brute strength. Meanwhile, Garp stood silently, the pain in his eyes deeper than any wound. And Sengoku remained calm, urging his forces to hold against the incoming tide.
Focus fire on the breach! All units, hold your positions and await my next command!
But Whitebeard unleashed a punch that sent a shockwave rippling across the entire battlefield, and Marineford's foundations groaned under his overwhelming might. As Navy soldiers fell back, Kizaru's flash of light struck at young Storm at light speed. But young Storm dodged and countered with an explosive blow that shattered the ground. And screams filled the air as countless fighters were swallowed by the spreading chaos. As Aokiji's ice froze every pirate ship in place, an unbreakable frost covered the sea. But Marco dove down, shattering the glacier with blue fire like the ashes of an angel. and the battle raged on neither side, surrendering even a step. As young Storm pushed toward the execution stand, waves of enemies blocked his path. But he refused to stop because Ace was the only family he had.
Hold the line! Protect the fortress!
And despair turned into strength as he tore through the suffocating ranks. Meanwhile, Ace watched the battlefield, his heart trembling with both pain and hope. But the executioners prepared again, determined to finish the task before rescue arrived. And Ace clenched his fists, ready to face fate, even with the slimmest chance of survival. Meanwhile, the Magma Enforcer intercepted young Storm, beginning a deadly duel. But the boy still charged forward, even as the scorching heat melted nearby stone, and their clash shook the heavens with roaring force. While Crocodile summoned swirling sandstorms to support his allies, the Navy surged back fiercely. But Mihawk advanced again, each slash ripping the very air apart, and his presence alone multiplied the battlefield's danger. At the same time, Jozu clashed with Mihawk, two monsters colliding in blinding flashes. But Mihawk remained perfectly composed, cutting through each heavy strike, and the ground split beneath their unrestrained power. Elsewhere, Buggy grabbed a cannon and fired wildly into the chaos. But Marco swooped in to intercept, his blue flames protecting allies and foes alike. And many were stunned. His fire was both destructive and compassionate. As the battle spread, the media recorded every moment. But the sky grew darker still, foreshadowing tragedy. And hearts tightened as the Magma Enforcer marched toward the execution stand. Meanwhile, young Storm rushed back, sensing something terrible approaching. But it was too late. The Magma Enforcer stood before the executioners, and the red glow on his fist signaled a killing strike taking shape. As Ace saw him detail, his expression shifted. He knew that cruelty all too well, but he stayed calm, always ready to sacrifice himself for those he loved. And the Magma Punch soared like a crimson meteor. While the crowd screamed warnings, young Storm sprinted, but could not arrive in time. But Ace stepped in front, shielding the one more precious to him than life, and the blow pierced him, the explosion silencing Marineford into stone like stillness. As Ace collapsed, the flame within him flickered like a dying lantern. But young Storm held him, his scream ripping through the shattered battlefield. And tears burned as they fell onto Ace's fading hands, as if begging his soul to stay. Meanwhile, the Magma Enforcer turned away coldly, believing the job done. But the Quake Titan saw everything rage overflowing in his eyes, and each step he took triggered tremors across Marineford, as soldiers panicked, fleeing from the Titan's path. But he didn't stop, unleashing a quake visible to the naked eye, and the earth split into massive fragments, tilting the fortress violently. As the Navy tried to hold the line, the sky trembled like it would tear apart. But the battle raged on Akainu, refusing to retreat even a fraction. And the era's greatest forces collided in merciless combat.
Push forward, men! Out of the way! We will not yield!
As young Storm struggled to stand, grief clouded his mind completely. But Marco held him back, knowing blind rage would only claim more lives. And though he screamed, he could no longer fight. Meanwhile, Vista and Jozu tried to halt the Navy's strongest units, but they were pushed back, Magma Enforcer, destroying everything in his path. The brutality crushed stone into dust, shrouding the battlefield in smoke. Though exhausted, the Quake Titan still stood, shielding his final family. But blood poured from him like a crimson waterfall, proof his strength was fading. And he looked toward where Ace once stood, remembering why he fought. Meanwhile, the world watched, witnessing history carve itself in fire. But Blackbeard arrived unexpectedly, laughing as though the battlefield belonged to him. And his presence chilled every heart, a new disaster emerging. While every force lay exhausted, his ambition remained whole. But he didn't strike yet. He waited for the perfect moment. And that moment came when the Quake Titan fell to one knee for the first time ever. As sobs echoed, the world sensed tragedy taking shape. But the old Titan still smiled, never regretting the path he chose. And he unleashed one final roar, a cry of an era ending. Meanwhile, Blackbeard stepped forward, his stride like darkness swallowing the sun. But he could not touch Whitebeard not while Marco and the others hurled themselves at him. And blue fire erupted, marking the last clash of light and shadow. As the Navy withdrew, the battlefield resembled a risen hellscape. But Blackbeard still advanced, unstoppable in his hunger. And he devoured the quake power, striking true terror into all witnesses. Meanwhile, young Storm was dragged away, screaming without breath. But he knew he had to live. Ace died to ensure it, and he swore never to let such a tragedy repeat. As Marineford collapsed piece by piece, black smoke choked the sky, but the horns blew, declaring the battle's end. And everyone knew an era had died, never to return.
Ace! Ace! No! I can't lose you! Let me go back!
As survivors crawled from the ruins, faint light broke through, but the grief remained, etched into every morning gaze, and the crimson battlefield seemed to memorialize every fallen soul. Meanwhile, global reporters fought to broadcast the Day of Fate, but none could capture the despair of those who survived. And they stared at the sea, the place where the war began and ended, while the waves whispered condolences to the nameless graves. But young Storm's eyes ignited again, a new flame born from sorrow, and he vowed to grow stronger, to protect whoever remained. As cold winds swept the ruins, tattered flags whipped violently. But Ace's spirit seemed to linger, watching over his beloved brother. And that grief forged strength, helping young Storm rise again. As the world trembled in uncertainty, a new era began. But chaos was far from over. Blackbeard's rising power shook distant nations, and trembling kingdoms knew the old order had shattered.
Look at the sky! What is
Meanwhile, the Navy scrambled to rebuild and restore balance, but young Storm's heart remained broken, no matter how he tried to steady himself, and he turned away from Marineford, carrying a promise he couldn't voice. As the sun rose, its light fell upon the ruins like a final farewell. But the story was far from over, for from the deepest pain, new legends are born.